Hi, I'm Jen with Sewing Machine Rehab. I show you how to restore, repair, and maintain vintage sewing machines. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. And just remember, this video is part of a larger series. It's called Full Singer 301 Restoration, and you can find it on my channel. Now, let's get started with installing the presser bar. Today, we will need the following parts. You will need your presser bar and the spring that goes down inside your presser bar. You will need your presser regulating thumb screw, your foot. You will need your thumb screw for your presser foot, and it probably won't look like this one. When I purchased this machine, this is what it came with. However, this is not the standard original presser foot thumb screw. I will be ordering it. I don't know what this goes to. I'm guessing an attachment that works with the 301, but I'm not 100% sure. You also will need the guide bracket and set screw. This is what's going to hold our presser bar in place and keep it from moving up and down. And then you will need your presser bar lifter and hinge screw. Before we get started, and we're going to actually start by installing the presser bar lifter and the hinge screw. If you have been following the series, I got stuck on this screw. I couldn't get it out of this particular machine, and I actually ended up damaging the original screw beyond repair. This is the original screw. You can see how messed up the threads are. Look at the head of the screw. Most of the damage on the head of the screw was done by me while I was trying to get it out. And so I ordered a new one, and I didn't think much about it. But when I first started to film how to put the presser bar back into the machine, right away I realized that my problem went beyond the screw. It actually was going to involve the threads of the screw hole that the hinge screw goes into, which are right here. These threads were destroyed. Now, that might have been from me. That might have been something that was like that from the factory, and that screw was just, shoved in there and was never going to come out. It could have been from a previous owner doing something with it. Either way, I had to actually get a tap and die and rethread this hole, and then this screw actually was fine. I did run the die over this screw, and it had no resistance. It worked great. Then I used the tap on the hole, and it cleaned it out and rethreaded it, and it works perfect now. It's a nice and snug fit whenever I put this screw in. So before we go on, I just want to explain that this is a die and this is a tap. And a lot of you might already know this, some of you don't, but this tap is size, I think it's metric, yes, M5 0.8. And this is what I used to check the threads of the screw and make sure that they were going to fit inside the hole that I made with this tap. And I actually found these, believe it or not, at Lowe's, and I wasn't sure because I know some of these screws on our Singer machines can be pretty unique, but this is kind of what's left over from the packaging. It was Irwin, it was metric. It came with several different sizes. This size right here in the middle is the one that I used, and it's working awesome. So hopefully I don't need to use it again ever. If I do, hopefully some of these other sizes are going to be what I need. But just thought I'd pass that along. This was around $32, I believe, for 5 different taps and dies. So let's get started. So first, let's just inspect the parts real quick. Make sure that you actually cleaned all the crud and the old oil and grease and everything off of your parts. If you're going to find rust on these parts after you clean them, typically you will find it on the guide bracket. You may find it down inside of the presser bar itself. I have found rust in this hole here for the pressure regulating thumb screw, and rarely I find it in the hinges of the feet. So that's very rare. You do want to oil your parts, and we will do that as we reassemble them back onto the machine, because if I oil this now and I'm not ready for it, it's just going to rub off onto the towel. So let's get set up to put some parts back on. So the first thing that you will want to install is your presser bar lifter and hinge screw. So what do you oil? Well, let's oil the threads of this screw. And I just have a little dish with oil, and I like to put it on with a brush. You can oil inside the threads where the screw is eventually going to go. And it might be overkill, but you can oil right here where this presser bar lifter is going to rest. So this goes in a slot in the back of your machine. The way that it goes, if you hold it and look at it, you will see there's this little nub. That nub goes up and away from you. Once we put this in the machine, then we will go ahead and add the hinge screw. Once it's in, what we're going to look for is to be sure that this hinge screw is all the way flush up against our presser bar lifter. There should not be any gap at all between the two of them. So that's going to be your goal as you're putting this in. So all you do is you slide it in, line up the hole here with the hole that the hinge screw is going to go into, and then takes a little finagling, but you can do it. Just start that screw into the hole. Sometimes it takes a second to get it straight. Now, as I'm turning this, I'm watching the hinge part of the screw, which is the flatter part up at the top, and I'm just making sure that that's going to actually be guided into the hole in the actual presser bar lifter. Then I will go ahead and tighten up this screw. And when I do that, I should be able to still raise and lower my presser bar. And you're going to feel that little nub have some resistance as it hits the tension pin releasing lever. It's supposed to hit it. When you raise this up, it hits the tension pin releasing lever. It pushes on the tension pin inside the tension assembly, and that's how the tension is taken off the disc, so you can pull the thread through the machine freely. So it's supposed to hit. But do make sure that your screw is in all the way and that there are no gaps between the head of the screw and the presser bar lifter, and that there are not any gaps between the presser bar lifter and the machine. And that is the first step. The next step is going to be installing the presser bar itself. So I need to move the camera to give you a better view. So this presser bar is going to go through this hole here at the top of the machine where eventually our pressure regulating thumb screw will go. And it's going to slide through the guide bracket. To put this guide bracket in, let's look at how it goes. Hold it so the finger is pointing towards the back of the machine, and as you turn it towards you, you should see the hole for the set screw. It is not a bad idea at all to put some oil on that finger because it's going to be sliding up and down right here. So it helps to move your needle bar to the lowest position so it's not in your way, and you just want to slide it into that gap, and it's going to kind of flop around. That's okay, don't worry about that. Next, you're going to oil your presser bar on the outside. And you can oil the inside of the guide bracket. And if you can get down into the bushing, that's great as well. That's just going to give you a little bit of lubrication. Slide your presser bar with the hole on the presser bar first, down through the hole in the top of the machine, through your guide bracket, and into your bushing. If you have difficulty with this, do not force it. Make sure that you are 100% positive your presser bar isn't bent. This should slide into the guide bracket and the bushing, no problem. If it doesn't, you need to clean it out a little bit more, and then you need to check to see whether or not this is bent. And one good way of checking it is to find a very flat surface. I use my countertops in my kitchen, and I can roll it back and forth and tell if I have a bent spot in the presser bar. Sometimes it will be down here where the foot attaches, because I think people push and pull here. That's their first place they grab. And I've actually been able to fix a little bend, very slight bend here, and then my presser bar is straight and it goes right in through the guide bracket in the bushing, no problem. But if you're stuck here and you can't do this, stop, because you need to inspect this part. Now, we have the presser bar installed. We're not ready to set the height of it just yet. So all I'm going to do at this point in time is I'm going to leave about, I would say, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch sticking out of this guide bracket, and insert in that set screw now. And this is to just hold it in place so it doesn't keep falling out of the bottom of the machine while I'm getting ready to put on the foot and all of that. I have the wrong bit in my screwdriver. So just don't crank it really hard to the right, but just snug it down so it doesn't move on you. Now, the next thing that you want to do is take your spring that goes down inside your presser bar. This can get a coat of oil as well. And then slide it through the hole, spring side first, down into the center of your presser bar, and let it go. Then last, you can go ahead and put this on. We're not going to screw it down all the way. We're just going to get it started. And you'll see this little cupped part here is where the top of that post on the spring is going to rest. And I just take it down till right it starts to come out the bottom of the machine. That's where I stop. Now you can put on your foot. Before you tighten down the set screw, I should have told you, make sure the flat part of your presser bar is facing you. If the curved side is facing you, you have it turned the wrong way. Your foot has a flat spot where it fits onto your presser bar, so they need to meet. The easiest way to put a foot on for me is first to start my thumb screw into the hole in the presser bar, just moving my needle bar out of the way, and then just working this around the thumb screw and tightening it on. See? No problem. So check this out. My foot's crooked here. Do you see that? That's because we haven't started to set the height of the presser bar just yet, and I wasn't very concerned about how this was turned. We'll correct all of this whenever we set the height of the presser bar. So that is what we are going to do next. Okay, so now it's time for just a little lesson. We do have some required or recommended would be a better word, factory settings from Singer for the height of your presser bar. And Singer does recommend that you set the height of the presser bar when it's up. That's not while you're sewing, obviously, but when it's up at 7.49 millimeters. And there are many ways that you can achieve that height, but a US quarter, and this is a shout out to Andy at AndyTube because he taught me this. A US quarter is 1.75 millimeters thick. So that is what I'm using. 4 of them equals 7 millimeters. So all I have is 0.49 millimeters left to get that perfect recommended height. Now I use a feeler gauge, and I actually use one that is, let's see if you can read that, 0.50 millimeters. So it's 0.01 more millimeters than the recommendation. For me, that's fine. That is a tiny, tiny bit, and I actually like my presser foot to come up a little bit higher, especially if I'm choosing to sew over some really bulky seams or I'm working with fleece or something like that. So this is something that you do not want it to be too high or too low, but if it is set at a height that you're comfortable with working with, that's what you need. Do not strive to get the perfect 7.49. It's just not worth the headache. If all you can come up with is 4 quarters, use 4 quarters and a dime and you'll be fine. So we are going to use the 4 quarters and a feeler gauge. So with your presser bar lifted up, and let's talk about this. I can put it up a lot higher actually than I want it to go. This is where I want it to go. I do not want it all the way up here. Did you hear that click? I just want it to right there. The two should kind of look like they're meeting together. The presser bar lifter and the guide bracket are kind of like perfectly in line with each other. Then I want to slide my quarters under after I've lowered my feed dogs to their lowest point. Don't let your feed dogs be sticking up. You're setting the height from the needle plate to the bottom of your foot, and the feed dogs will throw you off. So lower them. Then I'm going to slide my quarters underneath. I think I have a little bit too much pressure on my thumb screw right now. You don't want a lot. Go ahead and loosen your set screw, which I had it in there a little bit tight considering I was going to loosen it again. But I make sure that my guide bracket and my lever are kind of meeting together. It's up. I don't have too much pressure on my thumb screw. My feed dogs are down. I have my quarters, and then you can use a dime or you can use your feeler gauge. Now you get to check the side of your foot. You want it to be straight. Remember, mine was crooked. So I'm going to straighten it out by following this edge right here on the needle plate, and just by eyeballing it and kind of looking down. If you look at it from the side, it's not going to give you as true of a view. But if you look down and kind of follow the edge of your foot to the edge of the needle plate, you can almost get it perfect. And you can always fix it. If you don't get it right the first time, don't worry about it. So this is where I believe the presser bar should be. I'm going to tighten up my set screw. Remove my coins and my feeler gauge. Now I should be able to lower my presser foot. This is a little bit sticky right now. I may need to add a little bit of oil in here because when I lower my presser foot, oh, I see what it is. I don't have my spring contacting my thumb screw up here. So now it should go. It should go up 7.49 millimeters. And then I can lower my foot down. And now I'm looking to see if I got it straight. And so if you look at your foot, let's see if I can get you some light. If you're using the standard foot to do this, you will notice your little hole right here that the needle's going to go down through. It should be straight. You should definitely have the hole centered back here in the center of this little forked area. And then you can follow the edge of your foot along the needle plate as well, or compare it to some of your seam guides, and obviously the cutouts for your feed dogs. You should be able to tell if it's crooked by looking at all of those. So this foot is straight, it is not crooked. So that's it, that's how you do it. We have our presser bar reinstalled. Make sure that you get that set screw nice and tight. Once you've double checked everything, just go back one more time and give it a little twist. While you're at it, double check your needle bar too. These are screws that you do not want to have come loose while you're sewing. So in our next video, we will reassemble the motor for our Singer 301. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you have suggestions for a video, or if I left something out, let me know. I'm not perfect and I might have forgotten something important, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't this time. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.